As I'm sitting at my desk this morning reading some of this Chekhov book that I've had for over 30 years, it's available on Amazon for about $11 still. And even back in the 90s, when I was studying with George Stenoff, he suggested that reading this book is great, but it's difficult to translate for each individual actor these days. Because you have to remember at the time this was written, things were very different, theatrically and films, and well, we've come a long way is what I'm trying to say. So I was thinking about additional videos I could make to help out actors out there, and it occurs to me that I don't know how many of you are actors, how many of you want to be actors, and how many of you are just curious about acting. There's a place down below there where you can put comments. It would help. Give me some idea of what you're looking for from my video series on Chekhov technique and acting and auditions in general. That would help direct me towards some of the things that I want to do. One of the things I was looking at this morning is this chart. It's in the front of the book. I've got a copy of it, and I've had it for years. And what this chart talks about is inspiration. And Chekhov drew a circle, and around the circle he put all of the different areas that he believes helps inspired acting or inspiration in art in general. Characterization, imaginary body, composition, psychological gesture, style, truth, feeling of ease, feeling of form, feeling of beauty, feeling of the whole, qualities, sensation, means, and feelings, results, body, psychophysical exercise, imagination, radiating, receiving, improvisation, jewelry, ensemble, focal point, objective, atmosphere, characterization. And he thought of each one of these areas as a light bulb. And as you do the exercises in that area and become fully grounded in those exercises and achieving the goal of those exercises, that light will come on. And what I've discovered over a lifetime is I don't think much about the exercises any longer, and haven't for years, as much as they're embedded within me. So when you become at one with the exercise, it exists within you, and you can immediately light up that bulb and get to the inspiration that you're looking for. One of the things I always found fascinating was George would tell a story of how while they were on the ship from Europe to England, where Michael Chekhov was performing in King Lear, he called George to his cabin one night and said, "George, I think I've got it. What do you think?" Now, Michael Chekhov was a rather small, frail man at the time, and he walked to the other side of the room, and he was wearing a robe. And this frail little old man wearing this bathrobe walked to the other side of the room. As he walked to the other side of the room, he drew himself up and became taller and larger and more impressive, and he turned around and he began the speech that he was working on from King Lear. And George proclaimed that in that moment, Michael Chekhov grew a foot taller and thicker and more powerful. Visually, he radiated those qualities, that image of himself. And when he finished the piece, he kind of shrunk back down into the man that he was, into his own body. And from that, in our classes, what George talked about was people will only see what you show them. So there's a reason the screen behind me right now has a scene from Twilight Zone that I did back in the 80s or 90s, titled Red Snow. And I played Grushenko, a local villager, and I'm telling this commissar from Moscow about a body we found. Now, the reason I bring this up is George Zunda is the other actor in the scene with me in this. And George Zunda is not as tall as I am. I'm a much larger man in some respects. George Zunda had his heft. But in this picture, in this Twilight Zone, I appear to be a much smaller man, because that's the way I chose to portray this character. That's how I felt as this character. I once played Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, and I saw him as a frail, mean, skinny old man. I didn't feel that way as the character, but as an actor looking to play him, I visualized my imaginary body as being that. And it was interesting that in the green room afterwards, as audience members would stop by and talk to us about performances, everyone was amazed at the fact that I'm 6'2", because I seemed like I was smaller than Tiny Tim from the stage. Again, people will see what you show them. So doing the exercises to learn how to project the image that you want to project is very important. If you're not doing the exercises that I've been talking about, then this is just an interesting series of lectures on Chekhov technique, and that's fine. And that's okay if that's what you want. But if you want to be able to perform in an inspired way, you need to do the exercises. Now, as many of you know, I started out as an artist. As a young man, I would always take jobs that would teach me skills that I could use in my fine art work. That way I could make a living and pursue my art and pursue growing my art. But over the years, I discovered as an artist, inspiration doesn't happen when you're thinking about art. Inspiration doesn't happen when you're thinking about what to paint. And I've often told young artists that what's important is the work. Inspiration follows. Writers suffer writer's block, musicians, actors, everybody in the creative fields knows what it's like to have one of those blocks when you're not moving. And the only way to get out of that is to move. For artists, I suggest taking charcoal and scribbling on canvas and spraying it with water and look at the imagery and find something interesting and go from there. For actors, I would say doing these exercises and fulfilling the requirements of the exercise, you'll find inspiration. Your first idea that you have of doing a character will fall way short of the potential for that character. But if you start doing the exercises and saying the words with the exercises, you'll find a greater depth in the characters. So work on that. Comment down below on what you'd really like to see from me. And in the future, I'm going to be going exercise by exercise through the book on Patreon at the different levels there, where I can spend more time and actually seriously go through these. What I've done until now, most of my videos up until now, are overviews. They're touching upon the subject. They're giving you an idea of what Chekhov is about. But until we get into the exercises and we move through the levels, it helps, but it's not everything. So let me know what you think, and I'll look at the comments, read them, and get back to you. Thanks, everybody. Like and subscribe if you like the videos. If you want to see more of these liking, subscribing, and commenting really helps me put together the next video. So thanks for doing that, and I'll see you in the next video, and check me out on Patreon. Thanks, everybody.